More strikes, more retaliation, oil prices spiking every 6 months or so, and a nuclear weapon inching closer to completion. Ceasefire is not the same thing as a settlement, and the pressure without a finish line is not a strategy. It's just an expensive delay. America must define the objective clearly. Not damage, not deterrence, but the end of this regime's ability to threaten the region. The bombs have fallen, the missiles have flown, and right now, diplomats are sitting in separate rooms, in separate capitals, not talking to each other, while both sides call it a ceasefire. Here's what they're not calling it: a solution. America has struck Iranian military sites with great effect. Iran has launched missiles at Israel, at their Arab neighbors, and at regional targets. The Strait of Hormuz, the bottleneck that controls 12% of the world's oil supply and about 20% of the world's maritime oil traffic, has been closed, and Iran threatens to charge a toll on any ship passing through the strait. Your gas prices feel that. Your grocery bill feels that. And the talks? They're stalled. Tehran refuses to discuss its missile program, its proxy armies, or its nuclear ambitions. They want one thing: sanctions relief, and they seek that while they try to run out the clock. Here is the question nobody in Washington wants to answer. Does America have a finish line, or are we just reacting in cycles, doing damage, taking damage, and hoping the other side blinks first? Today I'm going to show you what a real strategy looks like and why a ceasefire without a settlement is just the next war on pause. Welcome, patriots, to this edition of Common Sense for America. I'm Bruce Rutherford, your host and commentator, coming to you from the beautiful Westwood Golf Club in Houston, Texas. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now let's dive in. Let me acknowledge something. The people who say America should stay out of this entirely, stay out of the Iran war, they're not wrong about everything. We spent 20 years and $2.3 trillion, that's trillion with a T, in Afghanistan. We spent similar blood and treasure in Iraq. Both were stable dictatorships where we tried to build democracy from scratch. The results speak for themselves. So when Americans say enough, I understand that. That is not weakness, that is hard-earned wisdom. But here is where the isolationist argument breaks down. Iran is not a country we can simply ignore, hoping it will change and submit. It sits on the world's fourth largest oil reserve. It borders and potentially controls access to the Strait of Hormuz. It funds Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. It has been the central bank of terrorism for 45 years, and it is closer to a nuclear weapon today than it has ever been. Walking away does not make any of these problems disappear. It just lets someone else inherit them at a much higher price later. George Washington warned us to avoid entanglements and alliances. Thomas Jefferson called for peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations. They were right. Neither man wanted America dragged into foreign wars for no reason. But here's what Washington and Jefferson also believed. They believed in peace through strength, not peace through hope. A nation that projects weakness does not avoid conflict. It invites conflict. Reagan understood this. He did not send American troops to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. He armed the Afghan fighters and applied economic pressure, and he bankrupted the Soviet Union without a single American soldier in direct combat. That is the model. Force as leverage, not force as occupation. So what does a real strategy look like? First, let's understand what we're actually dealing with here. The Iranian regime is under severe pressure. Their currency has lost nearly all of its value. Inflation is running at over 60%. Their military infrastructure has been virtually destroyed. It's taken significant damage from the United States and Israeli strikes. The Revolutionary Guard is hated by the population. That population has been watching its standard of living collapse for a decade, and they suffered murder at the hands of the Revolutionary Guard. The regime is wounded, but wounded does not mean finished. And a wounded regime that still has missiles, proxies, and nuclear ambition is dangerous. The Iranian regime is like a cornered rat. With no way to escape, it will fight to the death. Here is the strategic reality we must pursue. Iran's oil exports flow through a single choke point. That is the carotid artery of their entire economy. Control that pressure point, and you control the regime's ability to fund its military, its proxies, and its nuclear program simultaneously. Smart pressure is not airstrikes and sanctions and endless rotation. It is coordinated force that gives the regime a real choice. Lee Kuan Yew, the founder of modern Singapore, knew how to deal with radicals who would not negotiate in good faith. He gave them two options, both credible: permanent exile with safe passage, or total destruction. No middle ground, no stalling. The message to the Iranian mullahs should be the same. There is a golden bridge out of power. Take it, or face 47 years of consequences arriving all at once, i.e., death. Let me be clear about what this is not. This is not Iraq. This is not invasion. This is not occupation. It is removing the Revolutionary Guard's ability to slaughter its own people and letting 93 million Iranians choose their own future. When that regime falls, when the current regime falls, Iran's oil wealth can rebuild its country. The proxy armies in Lebanon, Gaza, and Yemen all collapse overnight without Tehran's money, and the nuclear threat disappears. With a government that has no interest in chanting death to America or death to Israel. The cost of action is real. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But let me ask you the other question. What is the cost of another 5 years of this? More strikes, more retaliation, oil prices spiking every 6 months or so, American forces in the region indefinitely, and a nuclear weapon inching closer to completion while we manage the symptoms and never treat the disease. Ceasefire is not the same thing as a settlement, and the pressure without a finish line is not a strategy. It's just an expensive delay. The solution is what common sense demands. Here's what common sense demands. America must define the objective clearly. Not damage, not deterrence, but the end of this regime's ability to threaten the region. We must work with Israel and our Gulf allies who share that goal. We must apply coordinated military and economic pressure on the regime's key vulnerabilities. We must offer leadership, a real exile over annihilation, and back the Iranian people's right to choose their own government once the Revolutionary Guard cannot shoot them in the streets for trying to do so. The blockade of Iranian ports is a brilliant strategic start to this overall strategy. Now tell me in our comments section, do you think America has a real finish line in Iran? Or are we just managing the crisis indefinitely? I want to hear from you. Until then, may God bless you and yours, and God bless America.